Teacher Rani Rajendra to give a talk.
Thank you very much to our lovely host today, Nadira. A very good day to all of y'all. I am Datin Dr. Thusha, and I am also an English language lecturer with IPG KBM. This session is going to be an interactive session, so I do hope if I ask questions, I would not be able to see you because I would be presenting. You would take the opportunity to answer some of my questions. Let me pull out my slides. Okay, can you all see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Thank you very much. Okay, once again, a very good day to all of you. I would like to thank the Students Affairs Department to invite me to give a talk to all of y'all. I personally do not teach you all this semester, but I do hope to see you all physically when we go on to the next 2 semesters. My presentation today is entitled The Creative State of Mind. So I would be looking into what is creativity and what makes you creativity and what are the things that you need to do to be creative. So you're going to watch a short video.
Could not yet. Okay. Yes, we can see. We can
Yes,
watch.
we can see.
Okay, a very meaningful shot. Okay, shots are short films, and there is just so much to take from that particular shot that you just watched. Anyone can tell me what's the most important takeaway from that video that you just watched? Anyone?
Being creative.
Yes, exactly, being creative. While the other two just, they took the conventional way, this boy, you can see that he's much younger than the other two. He actually thought about it for a while, looked around him, which is a very important skill to harness creativity, that's being observant, picked up those stones, arranged them, and he just walked across them. And what's interesting is that pathway that he created can be used by others. So this is what's creativity all about, being able to think something out of the box and being able to contribute to the people around you. So my key takeaways for today's session would be, what is creativity, the benefits of creativity, and embracing creativity. Many of us think that we are not creative, and when we think of creativity, we only think of things like, being artistic or being a good singer, a good painter, poet. But creativity is more than that. And as future teachers, you are the illuminators of creativity. When you go into your classrooms a couple of years from now, it is you who need to harness creativity among your students. So the only way that you could do this is by being creative yourself. I'm not asking you to sing a song or paint, but there are more to just all these elements that I just talked about. So what is creativity to you? Can anyone tell me? What is creativity to them? As I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a very interactive session. So I need some output from all of you. What is creativity to you? Yes?
May I?
Yes, you may. Your answers, I'm not looking at correct answers. You just have to say what comes to your mind when you think about creativity. There is no right or wrong answer. It's your own interpretation. I'm not judging you here.
Okay. From my perspective, being creative is about how I utilize everything around me to do something, and also being freedom in doing something. That's for me lah.
That's a very good answer. Anyone else?
Can I try, Doctor?
Yes, please do.
Okay, in my opinion, creativity is when we saw something usual thing, but we can make it interesting to others. Such as, when we learn history, some of people doesn't like it and they feel sleepy. But when we can do it in a interesting way, they will feel want to learn about it. So they will score it. Yes, like this.
Yes, very good. And that is such a fundamental thing of being a teacher, isn't it? Something which is boring, you just turn it around and make it interesting for your students. Okay, one more person. Nadira, if there are some comments on the chat box, you could also share them with me. One more person?
Doctor, can I start?
Yes, please.
For me, I think that creativity is when we use our imagination to create something for others to use. That's what I think.
Yes, very good. So all of you, when I listen to your interpretations, there are no wrong answers, because those things that you mentioned are all fundamentals of creativity. And when we talk about creativity, we look at our brain structure. There are two parts of it, the left and the right. So most of us are dominant to either the right or to the left. Some of us are just in the middle. We have both sides of our brain working at the same level. So if you are a person who is left side dominant, you would be more linear in thinking, you would be extremely analytical, and then you would be very focused. Whereas if you are a right side-brained person, you would be more creative, you would love languages. And I'm sure all of you who are with us today, majority of you are going to become future Bahasa Melayu teachers. You would love the language. And you also love music, arts, color. So these are some of the fundamentals of the right and left side brain theories. You can read them by yourself. A lot of interesting research on how both sides of your brains work. So if you could look at this image that I have, actually, you could see that the right side is portrait with colors and the left side is portrait with only black and white colors. It needn't have to be like that, because whether you are either side, you could actually use both sides to the best of your advantage. And that is something that you could actually explore yourself. For example, if you are very analytical, okay, you have data. How are you going to present the data? You can present it rather colorfully. You could present them with images. So when you actually are in front of an audience, it gets interesting. It's just not all in black and white. And if you look at videos, you listen to TED Talks, a lot of presenters, when they actually present, they are actually very creative in their presentation. So it takes both sides of your brains to actually come up with something which would attract audience attention. So creativity cuts across the board. You can go all areas with that creativity streak in you, and we would be looking into some of the things that you can do to harness your own creativity. So anyone could answer this question. There are 8 eggs in a basket. 8 girls took 1 egg each. Why does 1 egg still remain in the basket?
Because one of the girl also take the basket with the egg.
Fantastic. Yes, that's the answer. Did any one of y'all think of that as the answer?
No.
Yes, because one girl took the egg with the basket, so 1 egg remains in the basket. And that is actually, thinking about it, using both sides of your brain. Why did this girl actually, it's a very unconventional thinking. And that is what creativity is all about, unconventional thinking. Yes, so I gave you this little question to actually see how you could solve this problem. Don't worry so much about it, okay? You have still many years ahead of you. So this is something that you can actually cultivate and inculcate within yourself. Okay, what is creative thinking? Creative thinking is the ability to consider something in a new way. So when you look at something, there is always an alternative solution to it. We look at, for example, what has happened during this pandemic. A lot of people have become jobless, but those who are creative and they think out of the box, they actually thought about using the skills they have. So you have cases where pilots become chefs, so to say. They are selling hamburgers. They have their own kitchens, stewardess baking cakes. This shows that when things happen, when there is a problem, you think of alternative solutions. And sometimes those solutions needn't have to be those that people usually do. You see, you can always think something out of the box, and that is what creative thinking is. The exploration of ideas, and this is where brainstorming comes in. I'm sure you all have learned about brainstorming. Those are one of the characteristics of 21st century learning, which you have been through when you were in school, in high school. So when we talk about the exploration of ideas, what idea do you have? How could you add your creative streak to it? I can give you an example. In my class recently, the last 2 semesters, I have actually introduced poetry writing to my students. And most of them find poetry writing very difficult because they can't think how to write these verses. But when I tell them that you don't have to follow rules and convention, just write what's in your mind, it gives them some hope. And when I show them images, pictures, they could actually come up with words associated with those pictures, and they put them into sentences, and then they convert them into stanzas. So there is a process there. And finally, there is a poem for them to actually recite and upload. So this just goes to show that there is a multitude of exploration of ideas that you can work with. You don't have to be so rigid. And this also comes when you are teaching. I am tying my session today with also the teaching and learning process, because my audience is basically you guys, and you guys are future teachers. So you have to remember that as good teachers, we need to explore ideas. We need to make our class as creative as possible. Even mathematics lesson, for example, the generating of possibilities. When you are stuck in a situation, if you are just thinking linearly, if you're just thinking traditionally, you might not be able to solve that problem because you are wearing that thinking cap of yours and thinking about it conventionally. But if you think about it from the point of out of the box thinking, something which is unusual, which you could solve it in a very unusual way, then you are a creative thinker. Like, for example, if you look at a glass, if you look at a jar, let's talk about a jar of Prego sauce. I'm sure you have used this instant sauces to make your pasta. That is just a jar. But there is a lot of possibilities if we are talking about sustainable living conditions. How are you going to make use of this empty jar again? Are you going to just throw them and they land up in the landfill? Sorry, you have to think about it, because you have to also embrace the Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations. There are 17 of them, and you can go and read them. So one of it is sustainable living and recycling, repurposing, reusing. These are all fundamentals of sustainable living. So how are you going to use that particular jar? Can anyone tell me that empty jar? What can you do? Of course, you can send it to a glass recycling center. Of course, the easy way out would be just to dump them in the dustbin. What else can you do with that bottle or jar, the empty bottle, once you have cleaned it up? Anyone?
Use it as a stationery holder.
Yes.
Dry flowers.
Yes, yeah, you could use it as a stationery holder. And I have seen some people, okay, you can go on to Pinterest where they actually use it as glasses. They actually collect the same type of jars and they convert them to glasses. And if you go to some fancy hipster cafes, they do use recycled bottles. Very good. You could use them as containers. You could also use them as a receptacle to hold plants, for example, your money plant. You could also have them inside that instead of wasting your money buying a new vase for that instant. So this is generating the possibilities, and it's so important that you also ingrain this in your students when you go on to become teachers, how to think of different uses for different things. The capacity to look for solutions. How are you going to solve a problem? We live in a rat race world today. There is no denying it. There are so many problems all around us. But how are you going to solve these problems? Some of us might just think, okay, this is not my problem. But you must always remember the change begins with you. So if there is one little thing that you can do, it will impact so many people. For example, the attribute of kindness. If you can go into your own class, if you can be that kind person, if you can share that value with, let's say, 30 students in your class, imagine what kind of students they would become. So this is something you also have to look at, the capacity to look for solutions for various problems. That is why in big companies, their R&D department usually has a large number of people who actually are very creative. How do you think, if you look at Dyson, they have this fantastic hairstyling equipment, hair dryer, and they also have that fantastic, what is that? what's that machine called to clean your floor?
Vacuum cleaner.
Yes, you see, for a moment I have lost of words. Sorry about. Yes, they have a fantastic vacuum cleaner, which is pretty expensive. But the founder of Dyson actually thought about how you could make life easier for people. So yes, this vacuum cleaner is just a simple vacuum cleaner, but why isn't it like the conventional vacuum cleaner? Why is Dyson's vacuum cleaner so popular? Why is Dyson's fan is also very popular? Because of its characteristics. So they looked at traditional machinery, they looked at traditional machines, and they took it to a higher level. Okay, the knack to look at things differently. You can tie that up for that. Okay, the knack to look at things differently here means also the capacity to look for solutions. You look at something and you look at it differently. I give you a painting, for example, to study the painting. Some of you, if I give you an abstract, you might find it, okay, what is this? This artist is just painting something with all kinds of color. But if you think about it for a while, you would actually ask yourself, why is this particular artist using this kind of colors? Was she very angry when she was painting this? Was she very emotional when she was painting this? So psychologists for child psychology, when they're studying children and their emotions, they actually use art, because they are able to look at things differently rather than be looking at an art piece and saying that, okay, nothing makes sense. The artist is, chaotic in her thoughts. So there is this ability for you to look at things differently if you open your mind to it. And that is where creative thinking comes in. Any questions so far? You can ask me questions as we go. Yes? No? Okay. I'll go on to my slides, next slide. And one of the most famous person to talk about creativity, the guru of creativity, is Edward de Bono. There is also Sir Ken Robinson. You can read both their books, okay? Ken Robinson has very interesting books in the market. You can Google them. Edward de Bono, I was first introduced to Edward de Bono before I started reading Ken Robinson. He says creativity involves breaking out of established patterns in order to look at things in a different way. So it is breaking patterns. Okay? Don't think it's breaking rules, okay? But it's breaking patterns, traditional patterns. You are breaking them to look at things in different way. And you guys are the future generation. Okay, we have Generation Z, students of Generation Z. Now we have Generation Alpha. So you are able to look at things differently. So the traditional mindset, people with traditional mindset might look at you and say, okay, this is quite scary, but you are those game changers, the game makers, because you are thinking out of the box. Traditionalists might think that, they are happy with the way things are. But creative solutions comes from people who have a creative mind of thinking. And that is what Edward de Bono is, that creativity involves breaking out established patterns. So it can be in any area. Okay, I give you one example. You look at the traditional pisang goreng, fried fritters. Okay, but these days, Malaysians, they are very, very creative when it comes to cooking. So what are some of the things that they have done to their pisang goreng? The evolvement of the pisang goreng. Would you like to share with me? I'm sure all of us love having our pisang goreng. Anyone?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah? You have pisang goreng cheese. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Chocolate.
yeah.
Orange strawberry.
Strawberry.
So I just had to tweak that in you. Okay, give you one example. That is creativity, because those sellers who actually thought about it were thinking of something different. People are getting, bored eating the same type of pisang goreng, fried banana. So what are we going to do? How are we going to up our pisang goreng? How are we going to face the competition from our competitors? Okay, so let's introduce this. Let's add some cheese onto it. Although health-wise, it's very detrimental, but we love our pisang goreng cheese with loads of condensed milk. Yes, and that's creativity. That's being innovative. And creativity and innovation goes hand by hand, okay, side by side. And at the IPGs, at the Teacher Education Institutes, innovation is a big thing. We have lots of innovation competitions, and you would soon be involved with many of them. So for you to understand more, go and read De Bono. There are so many books that he has authored, and one of his book that I really like is The Six Thinking Hats. Go and read The Six Thinking Hats. What different colored hats mean. So he has one on lateral thinking. What is lateral thinking? He has one on teaching your child how to think and the mechanism of mind. One thing that I must stress is all of you must read. Don't only read books that interest you. Get out of your comfort zone. Read books that challenges you, that gives you a new outlook, a new perspective, because only then would you become knowledgeable. If you stick to, the basics, your knowledge would be limited. So that is one piece of advice that I could give all of you as students of IPG KBM. Read, read, and read. There's nothing like reading. Spend 30 minutes a day to read a few pages from a book. Don't only read novels. Novels we read for entertainment and pleasure. Okay, but these kind of books, non-fiction, you add on to your knowledge. Motivation books. There are also fantastic books on religion. So pick your books, but then make sure those books add knowledge to your existing knowledge. So yeah, these are some of the books that you could read, De Bono's books. So moving on, what are the benefits? This is actually a piece drawn by Sylvia Duckworth, and I chose to put this in my slide simply because her representation is very good. What are the benefits? She is an embodiment of what is creativity about, rather than presenting that linearly. She has actually added images, and this is actually very interesting. So what are the benefits? So these benefits are that according to Ken Robinson. You can read about Ken Robinson, Sir Ken Robinson. So the first aspect is creativity is multidisciplinary. So creativity goes across the discipline. And it's very interesting to know that usually creative people, they are easily adaptable to all disciplines. An architect can also be a very good painter. A doctor who is creative would be able to also present his findings, for example, in interesting ways. So it's multidisciplinary. Okay, and interestingly, we have introduced NPDL, New Pedagogies for Deep Learning. And this shows that when you are able to produce something across the discipline, you are actually harnessing the creative mind in yours. So think about it. Why is creativity multidisciplinary? Creativity allows you to express yourself. And this is actually what is fundamental in creativity, isn't it? If you like writing poetry, if you like writing pantun saja, make sure you spend time on it. I know you have all those coursework to complete, but make sure every day you have that time to actually write something or draw something, or just write 2-3 statements about how you feel, because it allows you to express yourself, and expressing yourself is one way to make yourself happy. Imagine if you have all those bottled up feelings in you and you have no way to express yourself. what are you going to do? You can look at children. They are perfect examples on how they express themselves. Give them colors, give them drawing blocks, color pencils, watercolors. We are not judging the quality of their work, but we are looking at what can they actually do. So even if you think it's awful, but to them it means something because they are expressing themselves. Creativity promotes thinking outside the box, and that is what I have been trying to drill from the beginning, that you need to think outside the box, because good problem solvers do think outside the box. And if you think of things like, how are you going to teach this mathematical concept, which is so dry, trigonometry? How are you going to make it interesting for this class of students who are not academically inclined? So maybe you could actually introduce a song to remember the concepts, an acronym to remember the concepts. So that is where outside the box thinking comes in. One classic example is Samuel Isaiah. He's one of the winners. He did not win the global award, but he came a close second, and he is a product of IPG Pulau Pinang. He actually thought of ways to actually motivate the Orang Asli students in SK Rinching, and that was rather interesting because he uses the ukulele in the classroom, he brings them out of the classroom, and their results actually improved with this kind of introductions. So you can see that by thinking out of the box, you can actually solve many problems. In this case, academic achievement. Creativity reduces stress and anxiety. And that is also very true, because when you are stressful, when you have so much of anxiety inside you, it's good to just, for example, what I do is I just take a walk, or I just paint on, I'll just doodle something on pieces of papers. I use lots of color pencils just for a while, for 5 minutes. And you find that that part of my mind actually helps me to reduce whatever that I am feeling. And you don't have to, these days, parents who can afford it, they're actually sending their kids to psychologists or even psychiatrists, because they say their kids cannot handle anxiety. Those days, if you know, the traditional parents, they might just give us a good spanking, but these days parents who could actually afford it are sending these children to medical experts. But when you look beyond that, if they only know how to actually handle these kids, you don't have to spend so much money on medical treatment. And creativity also allows you to enter your happy zone and have fun. Have fun, be happy. That is very important, because when you don't have happiness in your life, whatever you do would be filled with unhappiness. Okay, we all have our own sets of problems, but I always tell my students, you can always look at the glass half full or half empty. It's how you look at problems. Yeah. Creativity gives you a sense of purpose. You have a purpose. You are going into your classroom. How am I going to teach my students? Okay, I'm going to introduce them to video making today. Okay, they are all good at video making. So why not they come up with shorts and upload them, and I will publish them on Padlet one way. So it gives you a sense of purpose. It's not mundane and rigid, day in, day out. It's the same thing, because as teachers, we have to be creative. Creativity leads to feelings of accomplishment and pride. And this is so important, because when you are creative, when you get to achieve things, there is a sense of accomplishment and pride. People give you that motivation. You give your children that motivation to excel. For example, when our students perform very well during innovation competition or pertandingan saja, for example, pantun, deklamasi pantun, most times it's their own work. with the guidance of the lecturers, but it gives them the sense of accomplishment and pride, especially when they move on to win something. So I always tell the students, it doesn't matter win or lose, but what's very important is that the lesson you learned and also how much you have put into your project, for example. And that is an accomplishment itself, because we can't win all the time. Yeah, so there are winners. So we can't win all the time, but we do our best. And if we don't win, it's okay. We try our best. The most important thing is trying your best. Okay, and you can harness this also through your creative side of your mind. Creativity can link you to others with the same passion. Later on, I will talk about like-minded people. So when you are creative, let's say you like to write poetry, you would probably meet like-minded people with the same passion. And this is something that you can further enhance your relationships. People with the same likes. If you like cooking, if you like to try out fusion cooking, so you have friends who are also interested in cooking, you network. And why is this important? Because you need that sharing, that collaboration. Okay, for example, I like cooking, baking specifically, and I have a few friends who like baking and also decorating these cakes. And I'm also into groups. I follow IG posts of people who are interested in baking, so I get ideas on how to actually decorate my cake. So this is just a hobby, but it also shows me that like-minded people usually don't put down other people of the same interest. They are very motivating. You don't hear somebody saying, hey, your cake really looks horrible. But they would be able to say, okay, your cake looks good, but then I think these are some of the areas that you could work on. Yes, I give you another example. The movie. Okay, before I go on to the movie, let's say you have an idea. You wake up one day and you think of producing a movie where the main element is dreams. Okay? Dreams within dreams within dreams. So if you see a person who's not interested and you tell them, I had this vision, I want to produce a movie where the main plot is this guy who is able to go into dreams after dreams and after dreams. That person might just tell you, okay, I think it's not a very good idea. It's so dry, it does not make sense. But if you meet another like-minded person and you share that idea, that person might just say, that's a fantastic idea. No one has ventured into this kind of premise, this kind of plot. We could actually produce a movie. And that is just what happened. Okay, that movie is Inception, produced by Christopher Nolan. I don't know whether you have watched that. It's a fantastic movie of how the mind works. Okay, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, so watch that movie where it's dreams in dreams in dreams. Did you all watch that movie?
No.
No. Okay.
Can't relate.
Okay. So if you have the chance, go and watch, because the premise is mind-boggling. But you have to follow that through. But that's what I'm trying to say. A like-minded person, a person with the same passion, would be able to understand you. If you have people who are not within your same wavelength where creativity process is concerned, they would probably say, no need to do. Ayah, kenapalah nak tulis saja, semua tak payah. Bukannya dia membantu pun. No. That would help you to actually build up your own creativity, and who knows, you could become one of those sastrawan negara with your own piece of work. You have to start now. You have to build up your talent. So that is what I'm trying to say, that you have to mix around also with people with similar passion. Creativity improves your ability to focus. Yes, it does. I give you an example of taking down notes. You all have been taught how to take down notes, how to use colors, how to use post-its. These are all tools to harness your creativity. So yes, creativity improves your ability to focus. You read one thick, boring text. Are you going to read the same text during your exams? No, you have already summarized that in colors and in point forms in a little book that you have or in your flashcards. So your flashcards are not merely what I call them nota terbantut. It's actually all your notes. You have just written them using small typology. But it's actually your own understanding of the topics and being able to summarize them for your own understanding. That is the ability for you to focus. It also promotes risk-taking and iteration. So risk takers are always creative people. Who would have thought Elon Musk would be sending people to space travel? Yes, and that's what he just did. If I tell you 20 years ago, okay, one day I'm going to travel to space, okay? We are not talking about astronauts, but we are talking about people who could just pay to go to space. And that has become a reality where space travel is very possible these days, thanks to people who actually thought out of the box. And of course, people who actually have the money. Creativity is a prerequisite for innovation. When you want to be innovative, you have to be creative because you have to think about solutions. You have a problem, you identify the problem, you see whether your solution can actually solve the problem. And this is where also design thinking comes in. The whole process, the whole 5 steps. Go and read about design thinking from the start of, ideation, thinking of a problem, thinking of a solution for that problem, asking people's opinion, coming up with the product and refining that product. These are all elements of innovation, and that can only happen if you are creative. If you are not creative, that will not happen. So you can go and talk to all your seniors who have taken part in innovation competitions. How did they come up with the solutions to the problem? Because where our PDP is concerned, where our teaching and learning is concerned, we have issues in various subjects. So how are we going to make sure we are going to solve this? For example, okay, not all children understand adjectives. How am I going to make them understand adjectives? How am I going to make my students understand the themes that is contained in this novel? It's difficult, but how am I going to make them think about these themes in this novel, the characteristics? Okay, Cinderella, for example. Is Cinderella kind-hearted? Is she self-centered? How am I going to make them see the different characteristics of Cinderella? I'm just taking a very simple fairy tale. Okay, creativity encourages us to be lifelong learners. And I can look at myself at this age. Okay, learning is a continuous process. We don't stop. At the age of 50, I don't decide that I have stopped learning. That is why you also have people who continue learning even after they have retired. They come up with papers, they give talks, because you have to keep your mental faculty active. If you don't keep your mental faculty active, you would slowly decline. So whatever your ages are, you guys are young, okay? Make sure that you are lifelong learners. For example, pick up a language. I know a friend of mine, I was talking to her yesterday, and she told me she has picked up Dutch. She's doing this online course affiliated with one of those top universities in Holland, and she is learning Dutch. And she is already in her 50s. And it's very interesting because, with all those work that all of us have, we still find time to do things that interest us. So learning a language is actually very good to foster creativity. Learning a new language, you can pick French, you can pick Mandarin, whatever that fancies you. Korean, because half of y'all are K-pop fans. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you who like K-pop, okay, you only listen. Okay. So why don't you go on and further refine? So these are things that you do in your free time so that you are not bored. You are not bored. You are not stressed with the work that you have, the studies that you have to do. But you also find that time within yourself to do other things to make sure that you grow wholesomely. You are not only academically inclined, but at the other part, you can also speak a few languages. You can also quote lots of people because you have been reading. Those are the kind of teachers I think we would like to produce, a well-rounded teacher, not only a one-sided teacher who only has the content knowledge, but who does not know how to look into problems, how to be a problem solver, how to be a risk taker, how to be an empathetic person. So when you become a teacher, you have to embrace all these values. The creative state of mind. Do go and read articles by Dr. Nancy Anderson. She talks a lot about the state of the mind. What are the characteristics of people state of mind? She has done a lot of research, and interestingly, she is also a literature grad and she is also a medical grad. She has tons of accolades to her name. So do go and Google and read some of her works which are available online. She says many creatives are polymaths. Can anyone tell me what is the meaning of a polymath? Okay, a polymath is a person with multiple interests across a spectrum. I'll give you an example, a current example, George Lucas. Who is George Lucas? Anyone?
Isn't he the one who produced the Star Wars?
Very
Or-
good. Yes, very good. He's the director of Star Wars, and he also is, he also has interest in architecture, in history, digital technology. So he's not only looking into filmmaking, but that is his mind. He dabbles in all these other areas, and you have a person from long ago, Leonardo da Vinci, the Renaissance man. He painted the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper. And if you study Leonardo da Vinci, or you have read about him, you would also know that he also is very much into architecture and aviation. So you see, creative people, they would get their hands in different fields because their mind works such. So how from this area, how can I use elements from this area to help out with elements from another area? So that is what being a polymath is all about. Creatives are mostly self-taught. If you look at, not that I'm asking you to be dropouts, but if you look at Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, okay, these people are actually college dropouts who went on to self-teach themselves on the fundamentals of technology, and look at what we have today. We have Facebook, okay, and then we have Microsoft, we also have Apple. So they are also self-taught. This is based on Anderson's research. They are also a persistent bunch. They never say no. They can have thousands of ideas, but each idea that is rejected, they would keep on moving. And if you look at many people who are highly successful, they have had their own set of failures. But did they give up? No, they didn't, because that is very important. Resilience. Only when you are resilient would you be able to become a problem solver. You would be, able to stand with others. One example of a persistent bunch would be the author J.K. Rowling. What did she write, J.K. Rowling?
Harry Potter's book.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yes. Do you know, if you read her background, there are so many times that she got rejected. People did not want to publish her work. But then she finally got published, and look at where she is now. Okay, her books are made into movies, and she is laughing all the way to the bank. And that is how resilient she was. Creatives get their best ideas at rest, random, episodic, silent thought. So sometimes they get these ideas when they're doing something else, like when you are reading a book, suddenly there's something at the back of your head, or when you are when you wake up from sleep. So the brain is spontaneously reorganizing. And of course, they have tons of ideas. Okay, when you speak to a very creative person, people or an innovator, they actually have lots of ideas. And then with a good group of people, they make this idea into realization. So the innovators would make these ideas into realization. The creative people would actually think of these ideas. So this is how creativity and innovation works hand in hand. Okay, so what are the characteristics? They are curious. They always want to know. They are flexible. They can adapt and adopt. They are optimistic. They are imaginative, enjoy challenges, sees problems as opportunities. Problem is not, tak boleh lah, ini sangat susah. Apa yang susah? These days, nothing is difficult. You cannot say you don't know anything. Okay, Google is your best friend. You can ask my students. That's always my mantra. Don't tell me you don't know. Just Google it. Okay, all of you have your phones. Okay, able to suspend judgment. This is so important. You don't be judgmental. You don't say, oh, this art looks bad when a child shows you something. You accept the answer, you correct him maybe in another way. If let's say, you know, he comes with you with a very wrongly written saja or pantun, because only then would you be able to provide that scaffolding for that child to succeed. And they are playful. I'm not asking y'all to be playful, you know, all the time, but the thoughts, you can think, you look at colors, you Google Google's office, how it is set. It is not conventional because they feel that their staff need that room to actually exercise their creative minds. And they are open-minded. They are open to ideas. You are not rigid. A is A and B is B. Of course, A is A and B is B in many instances. But you are open-minded to other possibilities also. So this is the characteristics of a creative person. So quickly, can anyone tell me, okay, what is this? Let's see, what can you guess? What's this? What's this image?
Butterfly.
Very good.
Butterfly.
Yeah, it's a butterfly. You guys are good. And what is this?
It's a car, I guess.
Yeah, it's the frontage of the BMW. Yes, BMWs, they always have this frontage. Am I right? If you look at cars, whether it's old BMWs or new, they usually have this frontage. And this one, what is it?
Rocks.
Oyster.
Branch.
It's actually a tree, the branch of a tree. Yesterday, while preparing these slides, I went around walking in my taman with my handset, and I was just simply clicking away these pictures to be used for today's presentation. And, you know, it's just the eye of looking at things. And what is this? This picture here.
Bacteria.
It looks like a leaf.
Yes, very good. It's a leaf. It's not bacteria. I told you I went around snapping, so I would not be snapping bacteria. And finally, what is this?
Jose.
Of course.
Pancake. Pancake.
Yes, it's actually pancake, but in the Indian pancake, it's dosai. Okay?
Oh, dosai.
Lempeng.
Yeah, lempeng. It can also be lempeng, but it's actually dosai, where I actually arranged them. I took a snapshot. So I was spending my time getting these shots just to show you how you look at things. Okay, how you look at things is also very important. So the formula for creating an anti-fragile creative space is diversity, empowerment, and humility. So this is so important. When you want to create a creative space, you must allow diversity, hear different thoughts. You must empower everyone. Even in your classroom, you have students. You must empower everyone, whether they are academically inclined or they are not academically inclined. You need to give them that power to make decisions, to be creative, and humility. What is humility? Shay Hall is from design at IBM. IBM has a big design department. Yes? Humility is the acceptance. Okay? You are humble. You are also accept other ideas. You are not arrogant. You are not pushy that you are only the best, because creativity does not permit that. Okay, even the greatest of music composers, they still had others in their team. Okay, they collaborate. So what are some of the ways that you can foster your creativity? Research shows that creativity can be fostered. So don't say I am not creative, because we are all creative. It's just that the degree of creativity within us. Like, for example, I told you about the pisang goreng just now. That is creativity. That pisang goreng seller might not be highly educated with a degree. He might just be a dropout, a primary school dropout. But his ability to think, coming up with things, with something that is out of the box, shows that he is creative. So that is at a very, very basic level of what creativity is. So we are not talking about paintings and you know, poetry recitation. Not all of us can recite well. Not all of us can draw. But then whatever we do, there is some element of creativity. Our presentation. Oh, I always look forward to this particular lecturer's presentation because her slides are mind-blowing. She takes time. It's just not boring. You know, she has other elements in her presentation. That is a creative teacher, for example. So our creative powers can be cultivated and refined. Doing that involves an increasing mastery of skills, knowledge, and ideas. So like I told you before, it is a lifelong process. And how do you do it? You collaborate. You set task limits. You need to finish something, you do it. Like, for example, you are writing a pantun on your own. Okay, so make sure maybe every day you spend 20 minutes just to write maybe 4 lines. You like reading, and someday you hope to come up with your own novel. So make sure every day there is a time set for you to just maybe write 200 words. Because if you don't discipline yourself, you cannot do anything, and that comes with life anyway. If you don't have discipline, if you don't have time management, for example, marking your scripts or, you know, finishing up your assignments. Daily walking helps. If you are tired or if you think you are stuck, just go out. Just go out, take a breather. You know, you want to say a prayer while you are walking, it's okay. Breathe in some fresh air and come back, and you will have a different perspective. Research has shown the benefit of walking. Make time for creativity. This is what I say. All of us are not born creative individuals, but we can harness that. Overcome a negative attitude. Don't say no. Okay, you cannot be susah. No, nothing is easy in this world, of course, but we always have to face life with so much of optimism. Okay, if all of us have given up in our journey to where we are today, we won't be where we are today, because failures would always teach you things to face too. Yeah. Keep a creativity journal. This is very interesting because Leonardo da Vinci actually had a notebook, and you can have a little notebook where you just write anything. Maybe you will just draw a heart sign, or you just write a phrase in Bahasa Melayu or whatever. But there is something there. Every day you do something, because when you look back, you would see how you have evolved. Look for inspiration. Inspiration can come anywhere. You go for a walk, you see that butterfly, it might inspire you. Okay, like for example, if you are a poet, to write something about life, you know, associating it with butterfly, because they go through a various process, moth from larva to finally when it becomes a butterfly. Surround yourself with like-minded people. And this is what I told you just now about Christopher Nolan. Okay, you have people who are similar to you, because if you are with a wet blanket, the wet blanket person would always tell you not to do things. Okay, and it's always good to sleep on it. Why sleep on it? Even if you have a problem, don't think so much about it. Okay, when you wake up, you would find probably you have a solution. It's always good when you sleep on things. Okay, because sometimes the mind works in a very mysterious way. Go and read books on NPL. Go and read books on how the mind works. Okay, so remember, we can't forget the arts, because that's where true innovation comes from. The technical side is just the way to implement the creative side. So arts is so important in creative learning, in harnessing creative minds. That's why when people talk about STEM education, they should also talk about STEAM education. Okay, and this is a quotation from Patrick Farrell. So also Maya Angelou, she passed away a couple of years ago. She's a fantastic poet and writer. I'm sure you have, some of you might have read her books or listened to her poem. You can Google her. And she says, you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. So the more you practice, the more you confidently do something creative, that's when you would have more creativity within you. Okay, so the final slide for today, you're just going to watch this for a while.
Everybody feels creativity. It is a strong force deep inside us. Creativity is complicated. It makes us restless, chasing the unknown, seeking the urge of self-expression, purpose, and inspiration. Creativity allows us to escape the patterns that sometimes make us feel trapped and stuck. Creativity allows us to dream beyond borders and worship the true beauty we find in this life. It requires us to be fully present in a world where everyone strives for the next boost of temporary satisfaction. Living in creativity reminds us what actually generates sustainable well-being and happiness. Especially in times of darkness and uncertainty, creativity always remains the light, guiding us towards the right direction. Being creative is not a hobby, but it's a life choice.
Okay, I have to thank Vincent Rochelle for that fantastic video. But just to share, you could see some of the elements, your earpods, the laptop, the coffee machine. These are all taught by some person, okay? And that person had a creative streak. And that is why life is so simpler for us now, right? We have the earpods, okay? So these are some of the references that you could look into. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Any
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.